Hi, this is George from Upfish, your marketing automation expert, and today I'm going to be walking you through an automation which will take replies from your instantly campaigns, classify them according to whether they're interested or want more information or unsubscribed or whatever, and then it will use ChatGPT to basically create custom emails back to them based on FAQ docs that you've created when you're making these campaigns for these clients. So it's a little bit abstract, so I'll dive into it, show you exactly what it's all about. But just to let you know, this is part of a sales pack of automation. So the first few videos, if you've already watched my channel, we're showing you how you can buy domains, get them set up. So let's just imagine that you have 5 clients or 10 clients you want to do cold emailing for. This will buy like a whole bunch of domains for them. So then all you really need to do is to create a campaign. And then once the campaign is launched, replies come in and this automation kicks into gear. So I'll walk you through the automation first, and as we go along, I'll talk about challenges, problems, alterations you might make, and how this interacts with other automations, and also the Airtable, because this is part of a holistic approach to cold outbound. So the main thing is, first, we set up a webhook. So within Instantly, you can hop into Instantly, and somewhere in the settings here, and then in webhooks you can just add a webhook. You'll add in your make HTTP, the make address that it gives you, and then in this case I've just set it to all replies received for all campaigns, send them through to this automation. So that's how we set it up. When you ask for the webhook, you get this, you put it into Instantly, set it to all replies, it's all good. Okay, so what this will do is it will bring in, anytime there's a webhook, anytime an email comes in, this will just give you a note to say someone has responded to this campaign. So the next one we have is an API request to Instantly as well. I'm sending this to the Unibox. So what this is basically doing is we've received a notification to say an email has come in, and this API call will just get a little bit more extra information. So on the left here, on the right here, we see the variables we get from watching these new events. So we get the campaign name, we get the lead, we get the campaign, so we know who it is who's sending us a message. But in terms of what the message is, we just have the reply text. Whereas if we do like this call here, so I'm asking it not for a preview, and I want all the emails to come in, it will just give me the whole thread, so you get a little bit more context for it. So that's what that does is here. And then in terms of, essentially what we need to do here is add in the lead email and the campaign ID as our variable fields. That gives a bit of information. And then we have here a condition where body data. So here we have on the right, again, this is what the API call gives us. So we see here in the data, we get a little bit more information about what's going on. We get the whole body of the email. Now, in this example, this is an email that I've replied to multiple times. And what I've noticed is you'll get basically a HTML body if it is a reply from someone who is not in an active campaign. Whereas they are in an active campaign, then underneath this body, you also get the text version of it here. So this is why it's coming out as not seeable. So this is just a little basic operator to say if they've already gone through this process, they've booked a meeting, it's all manual from this point out. So that's what that filter is. But you can take this out and then just just take out the condition entirely. But essentially all that's doing is this. It's just a little filter to make sure that we're getting the right people in. Next, it comes to an Airtable. So this comes into our CRM and it's searching for the person. So I want to take a step back here and imagine this. Imagine that I run an outbound email agency and I have client upfish automations and I also have client downfish automations. Now it might be that they both want to get in contact with the same person. So they're two different companies. So in my Airtable, it might have target Brian Johnson for upfish and target Brian Johnson for downfish. So it'll be a duplicate. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to find this specific person who replied by putting in the formula, their email, and also the campaign ID. So this way, if someone is duplicated in our database, because we have different campaigns running, or we have different clients, or we have different products we manage, there's a whole bunch of reasons you might have these duplicates. What this will do is it will say, no, we want this particular contact for this particular campaign. So when we run this formula, it will find that person who matches these conditions. And then it comes into a simple, this isn't a fancy system, this is just basic GPT. I'm using the 4.0 model here, but you can change it to something really basic. It doesn't need a lot of processing power for this. But basically I'm just saying, analyze this email chain based on the most recent email from the person, classify the email according to whether they're unsubscribed, not interested, somewhat interested, wants a meeting. And then I tell it, please output it as a JSON. Provide it with an example of the JSONs. So obviously if someone says, I want to unsubscribe from this, we'll unsubscribe them. for that particular campaign, that particular client. If they're not interested, we'll just mark them as not interested, stop the campaign. If they're somewhat interested, well, I'll come back to that. If they want a meeting, so obviously in a campaign, you're normally sending someone a meeting link, but sometimes they're just too lazy to click on it or they don't trust it. So what this will do is say, send this person an email specifically about booking a meeting. And if they're somewhat interested, so someone replies with, how much do you charge? Or what kind of services do you offer? Or can you tell me more? This will put it into a different branch and we'll go into that. That's where the interesting stuff happens. So essentially we have this set up in the prompt. And then obviously the response format, I want it to be a JSON. So the next step here is a JSON. And before I get to the JSON or JSON or JSON, whatever, I don't care. You'll notice here I have an error handler and rollback. You can take these out if you make it yourself. The reason I put this in here is because frequently I find that, at least for me, OpenAI, maybe it's because I'm in Portugal or Europe and the servers are different, one in every 60 times I run it, it will come back with, I couldn't process this request, servers are busy, come back later. So by putting the rollback in there, rather than wasting that reply, it will just basically requeue it, try it again, requeue it, try it again until it works. So I have these rollbacks for, but to come back into it, so we have a data structure here. So if it gets the content, here's an example message. Can't really see it here. But basically it would say message equals not interested or message is whatever. So that's what the JSON does. It's just converting into a string. And then we come into a router because one of four things have happened. Either one here, let me just move this a bit. Either they've unsubscribed. So our message status here is going to be unsubscribe, or it is going to be not interested, or it is going to be unsure how to classify, or it is going to be wants a meeting, or it's going to be somewhat interested. So the unsure how to classify, I'll come into that because you might have noticed I don't have this actually in my ChatGPT thing. So this was something when I was testing it, I figured, all right, maybe it won't know if someone's interested. Maybe it needs extra, like a manual intervention. So I added in an extra option for it. And what happens here is it comes to a Slack message to say, hey, you have to manually classify the response of this contact in both Airtable and Instantly. So it provides the Unibox URL. So they click on that, it takes them straight into the message within Instantly. And then it updates their Airtable records and it removes the lead from the campaign. So they don't receive any extra emails. After testing it, I decided to take it out because the idea of this is I want this all to be at scale. And so if you're sending like 10,000 a day and 2,000 of them are manual, that means 2,000 times you've got to be like, check this, check that. And ultimately, you can take a gamble. You can ask the ChatGPT, say, right, you're unsure to classify it, but if you're 50% sure they're not interested or 50% sure that they're somewhat interested, it makes life a lot easier for everybody. So we'll start with the top row first. This one is unsubscribe. So if they say they want to unsubscribe, we simply update our records. So we have our Airtable, we have the people tab. We'll find them from the ID from the earlier Airtable where we're finding the contact here. And it will just update their status to unsubscribed. And then here we have the Instantly module, basically unsubscribe them from the campaign. Okay, so easy peasy. Same goes for not interested. Update the Airtable based on their ID, mark their status to not interested, update them in Instantly as well to be not interested. I've already gone through unsure how to classify. So the next step now is they want a meeting. So this is the easy peasy one. They're like, hey, I want a meeting. What do we do? So what happens here? Obviously it goes through the filter of wants a meeting. We update the record, as always, to say that they want a meeting. And then we have here, get a record. So what's happening here? We're coming back into our CRM to look for the client that is attached to it. That is the person in charge of sending the emails. So now would be a good time to come into my Airtable. So this is just example Airtable. So not a very good example. I've got George Woodworth and George Spludworth. Okay, let's just say that George Woodworth has replied to say he wants a meeting, as you see here. So what it does is it finds who is the client attached to this, which in this case, if I scroll along, the client is Upfish Automations. So if I come into the clients, let's just say I'm managing 10 or 20, it'll be like, right, Upfish Automations is this particular client. And why does it want to do that? Because we have a chat file ID. So let me show you what is in that file. And this is the document it is referring to. So when you're onboarding your clients, you're going to be asking them, obviously, to make these campaigns and figure out who to target. What does your company do? What's it all about? And this is simply a doc reflecting that. So if you are an outbound email campaign, I'm not an outbound email example I put together for the purpose of automation to make sure it worked. But I would suggest here, I have something here, I have the value proposition, a little bit about the company, core services, prices, case studies, helpful links, FAQs. So what happens here, as you would have seen in early videos, we have an automation where basically once you add a document like this into your Google Drive, it will automatically add it to an assistant and keep on updating it whenever you make changes to it. So if I come back here, okay, so I make one for Office Automations, it will add in the chat file ID of all of the information that we want to help craft the response of an email. So if I come back to the automation to put this into greater context, I've got the information of the client, now I'm messaging the assistant. So I've created an assistant, my cold email assistant, and I've given it the simple instructions. You are a cold email responder, people send you emails and your job is to analyze the documents, to put down the best and most briefest response to elicit a meeting to learn more. So again, always play with the prompts to make it more useful to what you want. But the general idea here is very simple. I'm just saying the name of the person. So here, George Woodworth, the founder at Upfish, has sent me an email indicating they would like indicating an email back. The full text of the email for context is here. So I map this to what I found in the earlier Instantly module. I also give it the website. There's no real use for that. Sometimes I find that it says sometimes, well, I won't get into it. I put it in there just to be sure, but I'm not. It probably doesn't use it most of the time. And then I'm just saying, with the information with the information available in the attached file, construct the best email response possible, and use a meeting link if available. Output as a JSON, message as value. Okay, and then here I've mapped the chat file ID. So if you imagine that for Upfish Automations, I have one file, for Downfish, I have another file, and maybe for Downfish, it'll say like my prices are €20 a day. So if someone responds with an email to say, hey, I'm very interested in this, but I'd like to know your pricing, it will construct an email based on the value prop, company description, and also the pricing element within that doc. So that's what's happened here. So it just will create a little message. And then obviously, okay, and then I have the rollback if it goes wrong. And then I have another ChatGPT. So this is not an assistant. Again, this is just asking it to clean up the message. So I'll show you an example of why we want to do that later on. But essentially, when you are constructing an email and you're sending the content of it in an API call, imagine you have like, quotation mark, body, colon, quotation mark within that. It's like, hi, George, comma, paragraph. Thanks for meeting me today. Here's a link to my meeting, www.tidycow.com/georgewoodworth.com. But there's a million different ways in why that is going to break it JSON because it's not formatted properly. So when the original ChatGPT creates it, it will have the right formatting. So if it wants to, go to a new paragraph, have like //nn or whatever, things like that. But if you were to put it through a JSON string in Make, it just breaks it completely. It will turn it into just text, which is what we want. So what this JSON does is essentially I'm saying, hey, actually, no, I've got an example here. So clean it up, example input and outputs below. So this is an example output of what the previous module is giving me. And you'll see here, hi George, comma, /n/n, thank you. So this means, new paragraph, /n/n. This is in, it's basically formatting it to be readable in a JSON. But I can't use it because, ChatGPT is unreliable. As you see here, a lot of the times it will come out with a bracket, JSON. And obviously I've got this message bit beforehand and the little tilde. Okay, and if you ask it to map it to a JSON, what you're going to get is all of this stuff removed. So the easiest workaround I found was ask it, hey, this is an example input, and this is what I want the output to look like. So I'm asking it to keep the right formatting, but without the extra stuff. I mean, you could just use a text parser for this as well, actually, and it wouldn't cost you any GPT credits. But GPT gets views on YouTube, so I put it in. Like, subscribe, share, comment, buy stuff. Thank you. All right, so anyway, that's what that GPT does. So when we have that information, we make a call to Instantly again. And this time, the URL is to an emails, because we can construct replies directly from Instantly. So the advantage of this is, imagine that you have 10 domains for one client, and each of those domains you have 5 email addresses. That's 50 different inboxes you might need to hop in and out of to handle these emails. But with the Instantly Unibox, I can just say here, this is the email ID of the email I received. Okay, so if I scroll down, this is from the data, this one here, the ID of the email. This is the subject I want you to put in. This is the email address you needed to send it to and from. So the from one is the most important one. So here you can see it came from george@upfish.com. So obviously if I had 5 different email addresses, then I don't need to check manually, we'll just map it. So they'll be getting an email from the same email they sent it to, which is what I want. The 2 email addresses, the person who responded, and then the body, of course, is the message that we've got from GPT earlier. So it'll be like, hey, George, great. You wanted a meeting? Here's a meeting link. Great, let's do it. Okay, then after that, it sends the email, and the next step, it will search for any extra people attached to that company for that client. So I think the formula is the best way of expressing this. Within the Airtable, okay, if I come to people, you can see here George Woodworth, and then we have here one of the domain for upfish.co. So what it will do, it will say, okay, George Woodworth at upfish.co has responded, he wants a meeting. I don't want to send more emails to other people who work at the same company, provided that they are attached to the same client. So if the client is Upfish Automations, cancel it. If the client is Downfish Automations, leave them in. I think that's pretty clear. I hope it's clear. So basically this is looking for that. It's saying, all right, if the domain is the same as the guy or the woman or the person who responded to the email, and the client is the same, but they are not the actual person, because this is for George. I've already updated, the original respondee is wants a meeting. So this person here, I'm finding everybody else at the company, and I'm just going to update them now as being in contact with someone else at that company. Okay. And then we have a separate automation which runs. So when a meeting is booked in TidyCal, then they'll get updated to meeting booked, and these people will be removed from the campaign. So at this point, I'm letting them know I'm in contact with someone else, keep them in the campaign in case nothing happens. But as soon as a meeting is booked, they're gone. So that is how we handle they want a meeting. Basically, the short version of this is someone says, I'm interested in a meeting. ChatGPT accesses the files where you have the useful links. It will grab the meeting link and it will say, okay, great, you want a meeting? Here is my meeting link. Super excited to talk to you. Easy peasy. And then the final one is somewhat interested. So if we imagine that somebody, you send a cold email, hey, you want marketing automations? And they respond with, maybe, what is that? Do you do marketing automations, sales automations? How much do you charge? They're somewhat interested. It doesn't make sense to keep them on the same, it doesn't make sense to keep them on the same campaign cadence of like, oh, would you want to talk some more? They've asked a direct question that needs answering. So what we do is here, the first stage is again, updating a record to say that they're somewhat interested. Keep track of our metrics of people who respond. Put it in second campaign here. This should actually be changed to somewhat interested. This is a legacy of something else I was working on, so just ignore that. I'll update this before I put on my Gumroad. This will be somewhat interested. Then again, it gets a record of the client for the same reasons as wants a meeting. We have the GPT, which does the same thing as before, basically. What we're saying is this person indicated some sort of interest in my services. Here is the context of the email. This is their website. With the information available, construct the best email response, sign off the email as best regards, and then we add in the name. So here in 164, so in the data, we have the sending name of the person. So this way it's not going to hallucinate and say best regards Jeffrey or best regards brackets insert name. It'll say best regards the name of the person who sent it. And again, output the message as a JSON. And we give them the chat file ID that we got from the previous step. So again, if you remember my doc from before, I might have some frequently asked questions in there, basic value proposition, basic services. This is the stuff that you're collecting from your client as you're onboarding them. And as such, hopefully all the information that they want is there. And it will construct that email. Again, we have another GPT just to say, here is an example email. Here's an example output. This is an example input. This is what I want you to turn it into just to make it better for an email. Again, sends the email, same as before. And then it searches for records of people attached to that company and updates them as we're in contact with someone already there. So that is, again, pretty simple first part to this. The next part, obviously, is monitoring the meetings as they come in. So this will depend on whether you have instantly or Calendly. And I'll show you this in another video, but just to not get your hopes up that it's an amazing video, it's very short. It's basically you have, a TidyCal. Do I have a TidyCal one here? TidyCal or Calendly, basically watch a new booking, and it's a webhook. And every time a booking comes in, find the contact, update the Airtable, update the instantly, update everybody else attached to that instantly. So not a very exciting one, but still something to look forward to. So I hope you like what you see. This is still very much more or less a work in progress. The reason I say it's a work in progress is because at the moment, this is basically just handling like, emails, just like, oh, okay, here's an email. What I'm working on currently to improve this is to put in a grading system. So if a client comes in and they're like a low target client for your account, then it will just, construct an email, send it off. If they're a high target client, it will use the enriched information we have from Apollo and their website and your value docs that you've created for your clients to create like a HeyGen video. Now all of the video, AI video type services I've looked at, they don't give you a lot of minute. I mean, I don't want to pay for this stuff for the purpose of a YouTube video, but only 20 people watch. But nevertheless, the value there is like, a lot of people are like, oh, we give you 360 minutes, a year of videos, which means that if you get more than 360 possible, interested leads, it's like, you're going to burn through it quickly. So I'm working on, I think, a pretty cool solution to just surpass that hurdle. But until that comes, I think this is still very, very useful in constructing more or less personalized emails almost immediately as soon as someone responds to them with the right information. And then the other thing I would like to address is, you might say, well, how is this different to something I'd get in Clay? So the way that I approach the cold emails, and the way that at least the people I talk to who are actual professionals in this, you have people who will send, you have this option for personalization and for using AI, and you use it because it's there. So I'm sure we've all had this situation where I will receive a cold email to say, hello, George, how is Lisbon? Is your phone number still 960 blah, 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 blah? You used to go to the University of Manchester, didn't you? By the way, are you interested in accounting services in Singapore? And you're like, no. I'm less likely to respond to this because the personalization is just so unnecessary and it takes away from the actual messaging, and obviously the targeting is wrong, which is a very long way of saying my approach would be to have just like, really, 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 really tight targets. So, 100% of the people you're talking to in a particular campaign are the same. You're not using AI to say, all right, have one campaign and I want an AI and personalization. If they are a CFO, send them this message. But if they are a CTO, send them this message. No, one campaign for CEOs, one campaign for CTOs, tightly aligned to why it is they want to talk to you, because that will be the same regardless of the personal circumstances. And then we use the personalization when they respond. So we don't waste AI credits on 20,000 people to send zero extra value. We use those AI credits for the people who respond when the value is more useful, and we can say, all right, you are interested in my service, in my product, in my company, but you have a question about how well we work with Microsoft Dynamics or whatever. Well, luckily in the FAQs, something about Dynamics, or construct an email, it keeps it business, it keeps it focused, it actually answers questions, delivers values rather than just completely pointless stuff that helps nobody and wastes money. So again, I really hope you like this video. I've put this JSON up in my school community, so make sure you check that out. And of course, it's going on my Gumroad too. All right, thank you, bye-bye.